Good day, everyone. Welcome to another weekly live stream. I'm Shawn Casemore, your host, and today we're going to talk about why single channel outreach does not work. Now, what I want to walk you through, and let me give you a scenario before we get started here. If you're in sales, then chances are you're reaching out to your prospects using different methods, different approaches, different resources, even different tools in some scenarios. What I want to suggest to you is this, that your preferences and how you reach out are based on a couple different things. Number one, they're based on software that you're using. So let's say for a moment that you're using, and I don't want to name off specific programs here, but you're using some sort of email automation software that uses email. It does outreach during emails. So you might send up some sort of messaging and you pick a list of people to go after and you're sending out automation. Now, I'm not a fan of automation. There are certain situations where it makes sense, but I'm not a big fan. In my newest book, The Unstoppable Sales Prospecting System, you'll notice I'll explain that in greater depth if that's of interest to you. But what I want to suggest is this, that when you reach out, it's either based on the software or the technology or the resources, tools, if you will, that you're using and how they demand you reach out, or it's your preference. So if you send a lot of emails out and they're not automated, it's you sending emails, recognize that the reason those emails are going out is because you're deciding to send out emails. I know that sounds a little bit silly maybe to say that, but here's the thing. Think about this for a moment from the perspective of your prospects. Your prospects have a preference with how they choose to communicate with you. So if for a moment you consider that, take a look at your own patterns, your own behaviors, you probably prefer to communicate in some channels with some people and other channels with others. To give you an example of this, I use Facebook Messenger, probably because of my age, quite a bit with friends, colleagues that I'm close with, people I know well. There might be a video I want to share with them, an article I want to share, so I'll send it through Facebook Messenger. I use LinkedIn more for my business contacts and acquaintances, but not necessarily for people that I know really well. If I know you really well, I'm going to send you an email. And if I know you super well, I'm going to send you a text message. Now, those are my preferences, not necessarily yours, and definitely not necessarily the preferences of the people you're reaching out to. But recognize that if you're choosing one channel, I send out cold emails as an example, that's not necessarily the channel your prospects want to communicate with you on. So the key in your outreach becomes using multiple different channels. Now, in my book, as I showed a minute ago, The Unstoppable Sales Prospecting System, which is now available on Amazon and all great places books are sold, if it's of interest to you. When you reach out, what you've got to do is realize that the step you're trying to accomplish, the first step you're trying to take here, is to validate what channel does my prospect prefer to connect with me on. So some will be okay connecting with you on LinkedIn and having a conversation through Messenger. Some won't. Some will be okay receiving your email. Some won't. Some will be okay maybe receiving a text message. Not my experience that that's a great starting point, but it can work depending on what you sell, but some won't. Some will prefer to see you in person. If you want to be taken seriously, they'll say, this person better show up at my office and say hello. Some won't. Now, in your sector, your industry, you could probably go through and apply percentages based on your experience. 25% of people respond to my first email, 10% respond to my text message, 50% respond to LinkedIn, whatever the numbers are for you. But just recognize that in your initial outreach, you've got to go through and touch on multiple channels. You've heard for years that it can take up to 8, maybe even 16 touch points to try and connect with somebody. The challenge becomes this. Oftentimes in those touch points, we're using a single channel. I want you to think about outreach across multiple different channels, not all at once. The goal is not to spam them or to annoy them, but as you reach out, you're testing different channels, and whichever one they respond to, that's a sign to you that, hey, this is a channel that this prospect is okay connecting with me on. So let me give you an example. You reach out initially, maybe you make a call. Okay, maybe you reach out, you leave a voicemail with somebody that you're trying to connect with. And let's say within a week or so you haven't heard back, then you send a follow-up email. And let's say after 5 days or so you don't hear back, so then you send a LinkedIn connection request. And after 3 or 4 days they haven't connected, then you mail them something. Do you see what I'm doing? I'm going through the different channels, and wherever they respond, I stop And that's the channel I stick to until such time as it makes sense to go to a different channel. The scenario might be this. If you go through those, let's assume you place a call, leave a message, they don't call you back. So then you send an email, they don't respond. Then you send a LinkedIn connection request and they connect. And you know how LinkedIn shows you on your notification screen, hey, Shawn Casemore connected. Do you want to message him? You immediately click the message button because now you're trying to validate, is this the channel they want to talk to me on? You send a message back and say, hey, great to connect, Bob or Susan, Sally, whomever. Great to connect here. Left you a message a couple weeks ago, was hoping to blank, right? Hoping to stop by, hoping to have a call, hoping to have a meeting, hoping to mail you something, whatever your next step is. If they respond to that message, good or bad, right? No thanks versus absolutely. That suggests to you that, hey, LinkedIn messaging, they're okay chatting with me on this. This is where they want to talk. So you don't then jump to an email unless they give you permission to do so. So you might say, well, look, I've got some information to send. Would email be okay? Yes, it is. Great. What's your best email address? Even if you already know what it is, you still ask. They give it to you, you send them an email. Better chance you'll get a conversation going that way. So here's, if I summarize this for you, recognize that your preferences and how you reach out to people are based on either A, technology that you're using and what its functionality is, or B, your own personal preferences. For example, a lot of people use email. Why? Because it's easy. Now, with that said, what you really need to focus on is what is the channel that my prospect prefers to connect with me on? Because it could be multiple different channels, right? There could be one amongst many that you're not even touching on. So then third step, design your outreach to touch on multiple different channels. And as a result of that, you're better chance you're going to connect with the prospect. Now, last thing I'll mention is this. You'll notice in my scenario, I gave some timelines. If you're interested in learning why I gave those timelines, make sure you grab your copy, The Unstoppable Sales Prospecting System. As I mentioned, it's on Amazon and all great places where books are sold. You'll learn a lot more about putting a system together that incorporates these steps so that you can be more effective in your prospecting. So hope you've enjoyed this, another one of my weekly live streams, all really to share with you tips, strategies, methods that are in my newest book, The Unstoppable Sales Prospecting System. If you have any questions or comments, make sure you put comments below. Questions you can submit to info@ShawnCasemore.com. And until next time, let's get out there and go sell something. We'll talk to you soon.